Today we will tell you about Gustave Courbet, whom John Berger talked about in his book Portraits. Berger, who also includes Courbet in this book, emphasizes that he should be considered as the last master and found what he did to be brave.
Gustave
so
Courbet,
Berger described
whose
him
full name is Jean
respectfully in every
Gustave
sentence.
Courbet, introduces France to the realism movement in the 19th century. He adopted an understanding contrary to the classicists and romanticists that lasted until the middle of the 19th century. Courbet believed that the artist should be independent.
In fact, the artist who was considered dangerous in his time due to his political views was not accepted the exhibitions. So he exhibited his own paintings alone and became the first artist to exhibit his paintings alone. This incident distinguishes him from the Romantics, who are art for art's sake, and the classicists who argue that artistic inspiration should be pure, perfect, and eternal.
Courbet wanted the living to make art. These two movements did not suit Courbet, so he gave the name Le Réalisme to the personal exhibition he opened in a barracks in Paris and became the father of the realism movement. Courbet said that they are gladly pardoning me as a socialist painter. I gladly accept this title. I'm not only a socialist, but also a Democrat and a Republican.
In short, I'm a partisan of the entire revolution and above all a realist. Realist means sincere, purely truth-loving. Courbet's paintings were also influenced by these views. When Courbet's paintings are examined carefully, it's remarkable that he portrays the workers as dignified and heroic and does not include non-existent objects.
Also, John Berger thought that any artist reduces to the mere independent reality of his work and says that Courbet's birthplace provides a framework for our understanding of his work. Berger thinks that Courbet's influence was not limited to the landscape. The landscape where Courbet grew up is a place on a highland far from the sky, surrounded by rocks where the dominant color is green.
Therefore, there are some similarities in their works. For example, in Courbet's paintings, there are grey rock embankments dividing the lush green countryside horizontally near the horizon, invisible or barely visible cloud figures in his paintings, and water figures in the foreground. Having given so much information about Gustave Courbet, we will tell you about a few of his works to better understand him.
Like Romanticism, Realism was a broad cultural movement in the 19th century that had its origin in literature and philosophy. In painting, its most prominent representative was Gustave Courbet. His stonebreakers represented workers as he had seen them in monumental form. The stonebreakers painted in 1849 depicts two ordinary peasant workers.
Courbet painted without any apparent sentiments. Instead, he led the image of the two men, one too young for hard labor and the other too old, experienced the feelings of hardship and exhaustion that he was trained to portray. Courbet shows sympathy for the workers and disgust for the upper class by painting these men with a dignity all their own.
The Stonebreakers was the first of Courbet's great works, and it was destroyed during the bombing of Dresden in 1945. It was dubbed a symbol of the peasant world by socialist philosopher Proudhon. For Courbet, though, it was only a recollection of something he had witnessed: two guys breaking stones by the road.
His illustrations of the Priory was revolutionary. He depicted it as it was, without romanticizing and without adding elements that originally do not exist. His representations of the sky were often not clearly visible. The light often seemed like it came among the figures. The Stonebreakers was a good example of that. How he portrayed individuals as equals, as in his other artworks, was also stunning. Water appears in the foreground of most of Courbet's paintings. Even if there is no water in the foreground, the shapes in the foreground are water-like.
The woman's hair and the fox on the white cover remind us of water in the picture The Woman with a Parrot.
I will talk about a funeral painting in Ornans. His work, which we realize that despite his famous laughter, his outlook on life is anxious. Courbet, who wants to paint his own time and his world, illustrates the funeral of a loved one in this painting. There is an ordinary funeral, an ordinary place, and ordinary figures in this work of the artist, where the ordinariness is dominant in his works because Courbet says that painting is a concrete art and consists only of the representation of real and living things.
Courbet refused to sublimate the visible. This work even caused him to be insulted by society. For the painting, people called it sinful and cruel, and some even exaggerated and said that this painting was an assassination plot. In response to this, Courbet said, "Show an angel, let me draw." In addition, in this period when great works were considered strange, Courbet made this work on a 3 meters long, 6 meters wide painting.
When we get down to the details of this work, we can divide it into 3 regions. On the left are the clergy, in the center are the officials of the town, and on the right are the grieving women. He treated all these different groups equally, and even one art historian refers to this work of Courbet as democracy in painting. When we go further, some people are distracted, which shows us that the realities of daily life can get in the way. When we look at the picture, we can see that the middle part is dominated by darkness.
According to the Berger, this darkness also has a social and personal meaning. We think it sheds light on the dark and closed ideas in that dark society.